Okay, let's get started. Today I'm going to show you how to make your multiplicity or clone photograph using GIMP. Please take notes during this tutorial. You might want to just watch it through once, watch it again to take your notes. If you want to pause to write down your notes, that is all up to you, and you can move at your own pace. So here I have GIMP open. Please pay attention. Your toolbars might be on different sides. That is fine, doesn't matter. But we are going to be using our layers box. We aren't going to be using these other ones. I'll be using this one, and I'll show you how to add that to your GIMP tomorrow. But for the time being, make sure that you have this one selected. So step one, we need to open all of our photographs. So you do that by going to File and Open. Grade 7s, you might only be selecting 2 pictures. Grade 8s, you might be selecting 3. Grade 7s, you can do 3, that's absolutely fine. And grade 8s, you can do 4 if you want, and that is fine as well. So you'll see in GIMP that when you open your pictures, they are like tabs, almost like on Google Chrome. The first one, I'm going to just call this my base layer. We are going to be using this, the one where the subject is on the left. That will be our base layer. So step 2 is we need to move another photograph. We're going to paste it on. So you do that by pick your second picture, right click it, go to Edit, and hit Copy, or the shortcut is Control C. Go back to your base layer, right click, Edit, and paste. Now we can see that I have pasted this layer right here. We need to make this a more concrete layer, and we do this by going right-clicking where it says pasted layer right here, and click to new layer. You might find that a window pops up and it gives you a list, a multiple choice list of options. Pick the top one that says white. It should be the pre-selected one, and then click Add. I think because I've done it before, it's not giving me that option anymore. But that is what you should do when that comes up. Okay, so now I have that pasted. I can go ahead and close this tab because I don't need that anymore. And grade 8s, if you're using 3 pictures, or grade 7s, if you are, just repeat the same step. So we're going to right click, edit, copy. We're going to go back to our base layer. We're going to go right click, edit, and paste. Again, you can see that this layer is floating. We want to make it more concrete, so we're going to right click the selection again and say to new layer, and there it is. So I can close this tab. I don't need it any longer. So now I have this one is my base layer, and then I have my second layer, my third layer. You can notice these eyeballs right here. What do you think these might do? Well, I'll show you. If you click it, that disappears. Same with this one. So you can sort of toggle with the visibility of these layers. Another important feature in GIMP is something that is called opacity. You're going to hear that word a lot today. So you can play with that by, this is at 100% now, and you can lower the opacity. Think about the word opaque. Right now it is fully opaque. If I want to make it more translucent or transparent, I can turn that percentage down, and you can see it is starting to disappear and in fact show the picture underneath. I want you to think of each layer as like a piece of tracing paper that you can lift up and you can see through and things like that. So this top layer where we have the subject on the right, we can lower how opaque it is. We can change that if we want. We can make that layer fully disappear by turning the opacity down. So if you are interested in making any of your subjects appear like ghostly figures, that is how you do it. You can change the opacity. So I'm going to be using that word a lot today to talk about layers and paintbrushes as well. All right, we are ready to move on to our next step. So here we have our base layer. We're not going to do anything special to that one. It's fine as it is. Actually, grade 8s, if you are using 3 pictures, I would like you to click this eyeball. Let's hide that layer for a little bit. We'll get to it later. Grade 7s, again, if you're also using 3 pictures, let's take the eyeball off that, that third layer and we'll come back to that. So your next step is this second layer here where I have the subject in the middle. This is the first pasted layer. Right click it, and I would like you to select Add Layer Mask. So that's about halfway down the selection, and click that. Oh, here's that menu I was talking about where it says white full opacity. That is what we want, and we're going to click Add. Okay, now what that does is it's almost like another piece of tracing paper that we've put onto this pasted layer, and we can play around with this mask layer. So you'll notice that I have thumbnails for all of our layers, and there is also a thumbnail next to this layer with the subject in the middle. You can tell which is selected because there's a white border around it, as well as there's, you know, the blue area. So right now we can tell I have the third layer selected, which is invisible, but I have the white border around it. So what I want to do is, where I've added the layer mask, I want to select that. See how there's black box around it right now? That means it is not selected. So I want to click on it, and now it is selected. There's a white border, although to us it's invisible, but that means I am now using my layer mask. We are going to color on this layer mask to bring that base layer through. So for this, I want you to select your paintbrush, and that is this icon. Please select that now. So now that you have that selected, I also want you to make sure that you have the black color selected. On a layer mask, you can only use grays, whites, and blacks to color in. Now what that does is going to bring the layer below underneath, and that is our base layer. So what I want you to do is, using paintbrush and black color, I want you to paint all around the subject. If you do color the subject, this is what's going to happen. It disappears. Control Z, which is undo, will be your best friend. But use this paintbrush to color all around it. So that includes this part too. You'll notice, since I've done that, this wall has changed color. You might also notice these closet doors change. They're a little bit brighter. And that's just because when the camera has changed a few of the settings. So even though Claire has taken all of our pictures on manual mode, the camera still changed a couple other features. So we want to make sure that the lighting in our pictures is consistent. So that's why we want to be really careful and color all around our subject. So I'll meet you back in a second where most of this picture is finished. Okay, so I've filled in most of my layer mask, and you can see that by viewing this thumbnail. All the black area that you can see, I have colored, that means I've colored that in. The white part, of course, means I have not colored that in. I can show you, I can make this silly mistake, and you can see that black line that I've drawn. So this thumbnail is sort of like a bird's eye view of what you've done. A really neat tip, this isn't a step, but if you just want to write this into your notes, is if you hit the alternate, Alt, the Alt button, and click on this thumbnail, you can view what you have done. And you can draw using this. Like, you can just see I've done that there. This is useful just to see if you've made any mistakes. So when you are coloring in this layer, you might not notice that you have left out you know, part of it that you need to color in, so you can color that in. If you find that you make a silly mistake and you can't undo it, what you can do is you can change the color of your brush using this feature right here. Click white, because those are the only colors we really use on the layer mask. And you can color that in. Look, that's all fixed. So that is something that you can do. Another feature that you will want to use is the zoom button, and that's just right down here. So I've been using 12%, but you can change that to, let's see, 30%. You can get a little bit closer. You can see that my picture isn't perfect yet. I'll just switch to that mask view. You can see that I'm not that close to the entire subject yet. But if I want to, I'll show you how to get this toolbar tomorrow, but if I want to change the size of my my paintbrush to get in a little bit closer, I can do that, and I can change the hardness of the brush, and I'll show you what that looks like. If I select a really harsh brush, look how clean that is. Those are mistakes that I'm, of course, drawing on. Let me get rid of those. But I can change the harshness of this brush. Again, you can select from here by clicking what I've done, or the opacity. I can change that. See how soft that one is? I can take it all the way down. And it's making like very minimal impact. Here, I'll turn it up a little bit. Just keep going. So you can play around with that, especially as you get closer to the person or the subject. You might want to make sure it's a really soft brush, and shadows too. If I were to erase these shadows, it would look a little bit funny. So I would say just be careful as you get close to your subject. And you can change the hardness or the opacity of the brush by using this selection. You can use the star. I don't see why you would want to for this project, but that is an option, and by using the opacity. So I would change the opacity, I would lower it down as you get closer to the subject when you're using your layer mask. Okay, I'm just going to finish this up and I'll meet you back in a second. Voila! So there we go. If you were in grade 7, this was all you would need to do. You just need to have 2 clones. Grade 8s, you do need to have 3. So what we need to do if you're in grade 8 is your next step is to bring back visibility in this 3rd layer here. Click on the eyeball, and there we have it. And we are going to repeat some of our last steps. So again, you need to right click this layer and you need to make your layer mask. Remember, white, add, and there we have it. So we need to select that. By clicking on it, it has the white border. We have our paintbrush selected. So let's color it in slowly. And there are our other clones. Ta-da! So again, be careful as when you're coloring on your layer mask around your subject. So these are fine because we are just coloring in, as you can see in the thumbnail, all black. When you get closer to your subject, you might want to change the opacity of the brush, turn it down. You might want to use a smaller size, and you might want to use this toolbar to zoom in. So like this. We'll get in a little bit closer. My brush is too big. Let me change that. So I have my smaller brush now. I've zoomed in using this, and I'm being careful around the shadows and the subject. And I'm just coloring around that carefully, as you can see on my thumbnail. I'm just being so careful because we want to make it look realistic. We don't want anyone to be able to notice the discrepancies in the lighting. So that is what I would suggest you do when you are coloring in your subject, is you zoom in a little bit, you change the size of your paintbrush, and I would go for a really soft opacity. You can see I'm not fully at 100%. I've selected this sort of soft one when I'm working around the subject. When I'm coloring the main area, it doesn't matter. I can use the harsh brush. I can have it at 100%. But as I get closer to the subject, I would like to be more careful. Okay, I'm just going to finish this up and I'll meet you back in 1 second. Okay, I've finished coloring in my layer mask and I am finished. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me tomorrow. Make sure you have your notes with me. I would like to see them, and I will go over this again during the lesson tomorrow. All right, see you then.